Does the killing of babies bring glory to our name? Femi Fani Kayode slams President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the ongoing Niger Republic and ECOWAS issue that has been on for some weeks now. Hello everyone, welcome to newsspottv. Femi Fani Kayode is of course a known politician, a lawyer, and much more that he calls himself. He's a known name and face in the political landscape in Nigeria, who has been a minister of aviation before and who is still involved in a legal case of fraud during his reign as a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. A former member of APC when it was another name, later defected to PDP, then in the last administration of ex-president Muhammadu Buhari, he defected again to APC despite strong words that he had said earlier to say that he would never, over his dead body, would he be in APC. He ate his words, everything, and joined APC. Since then, he's been trying to, put his feet down and to stamp his authority as a strong man of Nigerian politics. Politics, as we know in Nigeria, has to do with a lot of factors. One of such is integrity issues. And the moment your integrity is compromised, then every other thing will just be noise-making. Femi Fani Kayode is one of the politicians that is very expressive. He expresses himself on social media, both on his personal issues of his troubled marriage to his last wife that was very, very messy, where the woman was crying up and down, seeking for help, to be able to to even pay visit to our 4 young children. The divorce was so messy that, however, they've been able to strike a chord of co-parenting amongst themselves with their children. During the APC electioneering process from last year to early this year, Femi Fani Kayode acted as the spokesperson. I think he was a member of the campaign organization, and he did his work by tearing the opposition apart, strong words, and even end him as one of those allegedly to be banned from visiting some foreign countries, maybe UK or the US. So he's one person who has turned the mouth of the lion in defense of his own now principal, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. However, since the ministerial list came out, the first and the second batch, people were eyeing to say, let us see if Femi Fani Kayode's name will be on the list, but it wasn't. And since then, he has taken a stance of opposition, kind of, to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which a lot of people attribute to the fact that he's hurting for not being considered for a ministerial position. Now, let's get into the story of how he's, hitting hard at President Bola Ahmed Tinubu due to his stance on Niger Republic. A dear, and he said on his post, a dear and respected friend of mine who was once our ambassador to European country, who has relatives and strong links in and with Niger Republic, and who is well versed in security and intelligence matters, told me that up to 40 babies are dying each day in Niger as a consequence of our cutting off electricity supplies to them. According to him, these babies die in hospitals and incubators across the country as a consequence of the fact that there is no electricity supply and there is no fuel to power their generators. This was confirmed by one Dr. Abdul Jibu, a Nigerian medical practitioner, medical practitioner, in an interview with newsspottv.com. He wrote, according to a source in the Niger Republic, Dr. Abdul Jibu, there has been reports from Doso Regional Hospital and Cominac Hospital about the recent spike in infant mortality. According to him, over 40 babies die daily in Niger since the Nigerian government cut off electricity supply to Niger and also closed its borders. It has affected hospitals badly as they are unable to power their incubators and other life-supporting equipment to assist these babies. He also mentions that the closed borders has made it nearly impossible for hospitals to access petroleum products, especially diesel and petrol, to power their plants and generators. This is aside the untold hardship that the general populace are grasping with in Niger. He also made a passionate appeal for the Nigerian government to reconsider its decision, even though backed by the ECOWAS. He stressed the need for the Nigerian government to remember that the people of Niger are more like an extension of northern Nigeria. In his opinion, he believes strongly that the ongoing negotiation with the junta leaders will yield results and stressed the need for the negotiation to be intensified instead of beating the drums of war and upholding the current stiff sanctions that has now crippled the economy and the health sector especially. Source: NigerianOnlineNG.com. Now, so let us see what this is actually what Femi Fani Kayode posted referring to the source, but this is what Femi now added. He said, "I cannot possibly confirm the veracity or accuracy of these assertions and reports, but if they are anywhere near the truth, it is enough to prick anyone's conscience. Furthermore, I doubt that our president, being a humane, rational, and reasonable leader, would have allowed this to happen if he was aware of the harsh and cruel consequences of the cut off all electricity to Niger policy, and that is precisely why it is important to bring it to his attention in his article. Quite apart from that, according to UNICEF, more than 2 million children have been affected by the crisis and are in desperate need of humanitarian assistance, and millions of dollars worth of vaccines for polio and other dangerous diseases cannot be safely preserved or stored due to power outages." On his own part, AfricanNews.com reports that the UN is spending over 20 times more money than usual on fuel for generators to keep millions of vaccines in Niger from spoiling due to incessant power cuts. The outages are the result of severe economic and travel sanctions imposed by regional countries after mutinous soldiers toppled the country's president last month. Country representative for the United Nations Children's Fund in Niger, Stefano Savi, said it has spent $200,000 powering generators to keep vaccines, including for polio and rotavirus, across the country cold during the first 3 weeks of August. That's up from approximately $10,000 a month previously and might soon run out of money, he said. Niger relies on neighboring Nigeria for up to 90% of its power, but after soldiers ousted democratically elected President Mohamed Bazoum in July, Nigeria cut off part of its electricity supply as part of sanctions imposed by the West African Regional Bloc ECOWAS. The sanctions are taking a toll on the population, with the price of goods rising, residents unable to access cash, and people living in the dark. Now there are mounting concerns it will gravely impact the health system, particularly the ability to keep some 28 million vaccines doses in the country cold. Although there were power cuts before the sanctions, they usually lasted a few hours. But now the cuts are much longer, sometimes up to 18 hours a day, said Savi. UNICEF also only has enough money until the end of August and is appealing to donors for emergency funds, he said. How can we as a nation inflict such damage and unleash such wickedness and misfortune on innocent people who live just across the border from us and who are essentially our people too? This is unacceptable, and especially so given the fact that we are not at war with Niger and the overwhelming majority of our people regard them as our brothers. This begs the question, is this the way to treat our African neighbors and brothers, even whilst we lay claim to seeking and preferring a diplomatic solution to the crisis? Methinks not. If our claim and intention is to better the life of these people by insisting that they must have a democratically elected government, and by resisting a military one, is our purpose truly served by killing the children of the very same people that we claim we want to help? Again, does this murky and murderous cause serve our national and security interest, and does it enhance better relationship with other African countries? Does imposing sanctions and policies like cutting off electricity supplies and that lead directly to the death of innocent babies and defenseless children help our cause, bring glory to our name, or give credence or credibility to our so-called fight and quest for democracy? I doubt it very much. I call on our leader and president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is currently the chairman of ECOWAS, to review and reverse this policy and allow us to continue to supply electricity to Niger. This is all the more so given the fact that cutting off electricity to that nation is bringing death, suffering and hardship more to the women and children than to their government officials and members of the newly installed military junta. Surely, Niger's suspension from both ECOWAS and the African Union, coupled with the imposition of a series of strong economic sanctions, including the closing of borders and the imposition of a no-fly zone, are enough punishment. We must never forget that there is a distinction between the government of a nation and its people. Punishing the people for the sins of their leaders and government is not only unjust and unkind, but also counterproductive. Outside of this, it is interesting to know that our French allies and partners, who are amongst those Western powers that want us to bring the Nigerians to their knees and even attack them, recently described Russia's targeting of power grids in Ukraine and denying the Ukrainians gas to power their electricity supply as a war crime and crime against humanity. Yes, they are encouraging Nigeria to do the same to Niger. When will the application of these double standards by our French friends stop? Just in case anyone is in any doubt about the high-handedness and excessiveness of the French in Africa, permits me to conclude with the strong words and powerful admonition served to French President Emmanuel Macron by Giorgia Meloni, the courageous, passionate, and stunningly beautiful Italian Prime Minister. In a blistering and thunderous speech, she exclaimed the following words with orgasmic passion. Macron, your France undermined and destroyed the good relationship we had with Gaddafi, destroyed Libya, unleashed a wave of refugees and immigrants into Europe, and appropriated the resources of African countries and plundered their wealth. Children and the underaged work in feudal and inhumane conditions in Niger, just for you to take a big percentage of their uranium that powers your electricity and nuclear reactors. Niger has no light and are debt poor, all because of your policies. What a lady, she has said it all. Now, just in case we doubt her, let us consider the words of a towering figure like the former French President Jacques Chirac, who said the following at the 21st France and Africa Summit in Yaoundé, Cameroon in 2001, where 30 heads of state were gathered. He said, while speaking of Africa, we must check our memory. We started draining the continent 4.5 centuries ago with the slave trade. Next, we discovered their raw materials and system. Having deprived Africans of their wealth, we sent in our elites who destroyed their culture. Now we are depriving them of their brains, thanks to scholarship, which are definitely another form of exploitation, because at the end, the most intelligent students do not go back to their countries. In the end, not noticing that Africa is not in a good state, and as bonuses for the wealth we've made on its back, we are giving lectures. If there were ever a public admission and confession of neo-colonial and imperialist malfeasance and malevolence by a revered and highly respected French leader and colossal figure, this is it. He was honest, candid, and forthright about his nation's egregious and pernicious atrocities and outrageous policies in Africa, and we commend him for that. Yet, this begs the question, are those the French on whose behalf ECOWAS is considering fighting a war and invading a broader African nation? The West may have many African leaders in their pockets and eating out of their palms, but the hearts, minds, and souls of the overwhelming majority of the African people are with Vladimir Putin and the Russian Federation, who are now perceived, rightly or wrongly, as the champions of the oppressed and the architects of a new and just world order. There is a wind of change blowing in Africa and indeed the world today, and every vestige of neocolonialism, imperialism, feudal-fascism, economic bondage, and fiscal subjugation shall be blown away with and by it. We have seen this happen with the meteoric and laudable rise in power, glory, and influence of the formidable BRICS bloc of nations, which include China, Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa, and the admission of Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Argentina, Iran, and Ethiopia into that elite club of rising economic powers and giants just a few days ago. They seek to set themselves free and shatter the shackles of economic dominance and fiscal tyranny of the United States of America, the United Kingdom, the European Union, and all the other Western powers and their allies. Again, we have seen this happen in Mali, Guinea, Niger, Burkina Faso, Chad, and Sudan, where the quest for freedom from the bondage of former colonial masters, like the French and corrupt puppet African leaders and governments led to military coup. Regardless of the legitimate concerns of ECOWAS, I expect the same to happen in Togo, Ivory Coast, Cameroon, and probably one or two other francophone countries in the not too distant future, simply because each is bedeviled with seat-tight, vicious, undemocratic, unelected leaders and tyrants. Because the resentment against the French in those countries is palpable and overwhelming, and because the desire for Russian support and friendship is astounding. Nations like Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Senegal, and Liberia may thankfully not be in danger of military intervention because they have a measure of legitimacy and because they came to power through an ostensibly credible democratic process. But their governments and leaders must be very wary of the level of suspicion, hatred, disdain, and contempt that the ordinary people have for the Western neo-colonialists and imperialists that appear to bring so much power and influence to bear over their nation's affairs, and for those that are seen as weak, corrupt puppet leaders who are prepared to put Western interests before that of their own country. These leaders and governments cannot and must not make the mistake of being seen or regarded as the chief poodle, chief enforcer, chief slave driver, or the groveling and sniveling, yes bwana, yes massa, chief house nigger of the Western powers in the West African sub-region. ECOWAS must be perceived as the body that brings Nigerians together and Africans together and settles their differences in a diplomatic and civilized manner, and not a body that can be used by the French, Americans, British, EU, or anyone else to exploit us, to further and protect Western interests and to fight proxy wars on their behalf. Frankly, the only ones that I can vouch for in this respect are Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo, who I do not believe will ever consciously and willingly sell their people down the river. Whatever the case, we must not allow any country in the West African sub-region to be turned into a Zaire under Mobutu Sese Seko or to a Central African Republic under Jean Bedi Bokassa. That is the French formula, and it must never take root here. May God guide our leaders. Concluded, Femi Fani Kayode. This is quite a lengthy one. Let's take a few comments from Nigerians on this. The first commenter said, double talked. Another said, that's what it means to sanction a country that violates international convention codes. Another said, that president is paying for his sins of intruding into Nigeria with the citizens to perpetrate an election that brought in APC government. He's paying for his sin. All right, so those are just a few we can take because it's actually a lengthy one from Femi Kayode already, who was taking a stand. And in a subtle manner, you know, the way he talks to the right and talks to the left and all of that, that is who Femi Fani Kayode is known for. So what's your own opinion? Please let us know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. Do remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you in the next video. May God bless Nigeria. Bye for now.